You ever have one of those days at work? You know the ones. You feel like your organization is just pure chaos. You spend all your time putting out fires, kicking off new projects, solving one crisis right after another, only to come in the next day and find a whole new set of problems waiting for you. It's exhausting, right? And it really feels like you're losing control. But what if there's a pattern to all that chaos? What if there's a way for you to become the architect of order? Well, that's what we're going to dig into. This quote from organizational strategist Alfonso Cornejo just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that feeling of being caught in a storm without a compass. And it's exactly that feeling, that sense of total disorder, that made him start looking for a deeper explanation, some kind of hidden logic behind all the turmoil. And this is the trap so many of us are caught in. We're constantly reacting to symptoms. A deadline gets missed, so boom, we create a new tracking system. A team has a conflict, so we bring in a mediator. We're always busy, always solving things. But the real underlying issues, they never actually go away. They just pop up somewhere else, maybe wearing a new disguise. So this is where we have to totally shift our perspective. The reason our fixes don't stick is that we're only dealing with what's visible on the surface. We're fighting the tip of the iceberg. But the real drivers of all that chaos, oh, they're hidden deep, deep beneath the water.
So let's take a dive, shall we? Right at the top, sticking out of the water, we've got the events. These are the day-to-day crises. That missed sales target, the angry customer complaint, the server that suddenly goes down. They're loud, they're urgent, and they demand our immediate attention. This is what triggers our firefighting instincts.
But if we look just a little bit below the surface, we start to see something interesting. These isolated events, well, they aren't so isolated after all. They start to form patterns. That missed sales target, come to think of it, that seems to happen every third quarter. That customer complaint, that's actually the 10th one this month about the exact same issue. Seeing these recurring behaviors, that's the first real step to breaking the cycle. But why do these patterns exist? They're not just random. As we dive even deeper, we find out they're being generated by the systemic structures of your organization. Now, think of structures as the invisible rules of the game. They literally dictate how people behave and interact. They are the unseen forces shaping everything we see on the surface. And finally, at the very bottom, the absolute core of the iceberg, we find the mental models. These are the deep-seated beliefs, the assumptions, the values that we all carry around. These models are what lead us to create the structures in the first place. A belief that leaders must have all the answers creates a structure of centralized decision-making, which then creates patterns of bottlenecks and frustrated teams. See how it all connects? So, this brings us to the big aha moment of this whole framework. It's the idea that what we see, the processes, the events, the chaos, is being driven by what we don't see, the structures. And this isn't just some abstract theory. It's basically a predictive engine for how your organization actually works. This is what Cornejo calls the structure processes model. And what it's really saying is that your organization's structures, the policies, the tech you use, the hierarchy, they literally create the behaviors you see every single day. The structures are the cause, the processes are the effect. So if you don't like the outcome of the game, you can't just yell at the players, you have to change the rules of the game itself. Let's make this super concrete. We see things like conflict or poor teamwork, right? And our first instinct is to blame personalities. Oh, Bob and Susan just don't get along. But this model forces us to look deeper. Is that conflict actually caused by an incentive system that pits teams against each other for a bonus? Is the poor teamwork a result of an office layout that keeps everyone physically isolated? You see, the problem we see is almost never the real problem. So, what exactly are we talking about when we say structures? Well, they fall into about 4 main buckets. You've got administrative structures, the formal stuff, like policies and goals. Then there are technological structures, the tools we use, even the physical office space. Human structures are about the skills and beliefs people bring to the table. And maybe most powerful of all are the cultural structures, those unwritten rules that govern how things really get done around here. Okay, here it is. This is where the real shift in thinking happens. We have to stop trying to fix the processes directly. We have to stop managing the chaotic events one by one. If you want to create lasting change, if you want to get rid of those recurring problems for good, you absolutely must have the courage to diagnose and redesign the underlying structures that are causing them in the first place. Okay, that all makes sense in theory, right? But how do we actually put it into practice? How do we go from just understanding the iceberg to actually being able to change it? Let's get into the toolkit and see how this becomes a real, actionable plan.
So how do you actually do this? The whole approach is about becoming a kind of structural detective. You start with a recurring problem, then you trace it back through all of the symptoms until you find its anchor. That's the core structural flaw driving everything. And once you find that anchor, you can focus all your energy on redesigning that one specific structure to generate way better outcomes.
When you start to think this way, your entire role changes. You're no longer the person running around with a fire hose, just dealing with the smoke and flames. Instead, you're the one looking at the building's blueprints, finding the faulty wiring that's causing the fires in the first place, and you're fixing it once and for all. It's a huge shift from being reactive to being truly strategic.
And all of this leads to a brand new and I think much more powerful way of thinking about leadership. It's not about being the hero in the middle of all the chaos. It's about becoming something so much more impactful.
I mean, just look at the difference here. On one side, you have the leader as hero. They're constantly in motion, celebrated for swooping in and saving the day. It looks exciting, but let's be honest, it's unsustainable and completely exhausting. But the leader as architect, they're proactive. They aren't celebrated for solving crises. They're valued for creating a system where those crises just don't happen very often. They build stability, not dependency. And this really brings us to a new definition of leadership. It isn't about personal heroics. It's about intelligent, intentional design. It's about having the wisdom to step back from the daily chaos so you can build a more robust, a more resilient, and a more orderly organization right from the foundation up. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. As you go back to your work, start trying to look beneath the surface. Don't just see the events and the problems anymore. Ask yourself, what are the patterns here? What are the structures driving them? And what are the mental models at the very, very core? Because that is where the real power to create lasting change actually lies.